track.
Yeah.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are for love, baby. That was the only thing I could think of after that moment.
Oh, that was
BT
yeah.
dubs.
Oh, yeah.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are off, and I was like, "Cause we going wow, chicka, wow, wow."
It's not the month of love
So we got to
anymore,
make the
baby.
So we got to make the rest of the world do it.
Yeah, really.
Oh my goodness.
Oh gosh.
I remember that part, and I was like, wait, what is the what? They just randomly added that, like, what?
Credits.
That didn't even make sense.
Exactly.
yeah, like what?
P.S. Tuesdays and Thursdays are off, and that's it.
Yep.
So random.
Roll credits.
Roll credits.
After credit scene? No, nothing.
Nope, that was it.
This ended worse than the book did.
Oof.
Oh gosh, this is gonna
We'll
be
get there.
interesting.
We'll get
so
there.
we'll get there.
We'll get there.
But before we get there, what up, punks? Welcome back to another episode of the Pop Culture Punks podcast. I'm your host, Phil. To the left of me, we got your boy,
Josh.
and to the right of me,
Chris.
returning,
Oh.
we got Chris.
He jumped the gun. Whoops.
He jumped the gun. He's so excited. And this week we'll be talking about the book and the movie Ready Player One a little bit. But the main discussion will center around book to movie adaptations.
Yes.
And whether or not they work and what would make them work and all that jazz. Kind of like we did with the other ones.
Yes.
So, but before we get into that, what have you guys been up to? Any pop culture recommendations from this week?
I will go first, if that's cool, because mine should be pretty quick. One, I don't know how I found this, but it was the most magical thing I have ever discovered on Twitter. And that is that back in, I think it was 03 or 05, Randy Savage, the Macho Man Randy Savage,
The Macho Man,
released a rap album. And it is the most amazing album I've ever listened to.
Wow.
It's spectacular.
Okay.
It is like, it is exactly, if you can just envision the early 2000s hip hop beats with like some like guitar riffs, like, and then Macho Man just be like, "Oh yeah, come on, son, going with the rapping. It's gonna be done."
That sounds right up your
It's
alley.
incredible. It is so incredible, and it's best of all. So it's by Randy Savage, and the album title is called "Be a Man." And there's literally a song I think the title track is actually a diss track to Hulk Hogan. So the song "Be a Man" on the album "Be a Man" is a diss track to Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
It is incredible. He goes back.
Awesome.
He's like, "I made it into Spider-Man, brother." Like, it's so good. If you just want a big smile and just laugh at something that is like just good enough that it's hilarious, but like just bad enough that you want to tell everybody else to listen to it, "Be a Man" by Randy Savage.
That's fantastic.
It's incredible. After that, I got hard back into Bloodborne. I know I
Nice.
talked about it I think last week.
You said that for some reason
Ocarina.
Ocarina wanted
Yep.
you to go play Bloodborne.
And it's exactly what I needed. It's
All right.
a lot easier in a way than I remember last time, but I think that's because versus when I played it the first time, I tried to bend the game to my will, which was I'm just going to hack and slash. I'm not going to actually like time my stuff. I'm not going to switch between your range or your melee weapon has two forms. There's a short form and then a long form. And when I was playing, it was like, oh, well, the short form does damage easier, or does more, so I'm just going to do that and beat the snot out of everything.
Mhm.
But some things, obviously, you can take out in like 2 hits. Some take like 7. You actually have to pace yourself in fights. And so I went into this playthrough doing it now, and I'm progressing so much faster and like getting through the game a lot faster.
Right.
So it's a lot of fun. It's still
Nice.
freaking unreal in terms of difficulty, but it feels much more manageable as I'm trying to like play the game as Dark
Someday
Souls
I
games
want to
are.
get good enough to play those games, but I don't know if I ever will.
To be honest, it's one of those things where I think that's why I have been enjoying it so much from after finishing Ocarina, is that I feel myself getting better, and I feel myself being like, oh, these guys always attack in these 3 patterns. They always go like this, use a range, 5 hits, done. And then just move to the next one, and then do the next one. Instead of like speed running and trying to just be
I do
like,
that same thing, and I do like learn the patterns, but I don't learn from them. Like
that's your problem.
like my frustration just rises, and
You're like, "Ah!"
the more I try it, the harder it gets. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I did notice because I went back and played Shovel Knight,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized I just like started plowing through it, and before I like could not get past this obstacle. And all of a sudden I played it, I'm like, wait, where was the obstacle I was stuck on? So
Right.
maybe if I did go back, it'd be
Yeah,
fine.
I think the other thing too is it's weird because you get punished, and so you have to like restart, and you're dying like 50 times, but as a result of that, you you almost have to play it to learn to explore and to just like learn. Like the entire game is learning the game. It's not trying to get through it. So for me, instead of trying to beat everything I run into, it's like just get to the next gate, unlock the next gate, get to the next thing. And then I was like, oh, I'm like already at the next boss. Like, here we go. And the second boss, so in Bloodborne, he's like, oh, he was so freaking hard. The first time I played it, I literally think I counted, it was 20 attempts. And in this one, I did 2, I think.
Oh, dang.
So, but that was because I actually knew, okay, you got to go get this
Is it the guy who's a hunter as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
he's
I've
one of the
seen
first
videos
dudes.
of that, and it looks hard.
Yeah, but it was weird because all of a sudden it was like, when I first played it, it was like, I can't take any damage, and if I take damage, I'm mashing the heal thing. It's like, he's shooting at me, whatever. Like, okay, I do this, and like I stopped panicking. And I've heard other Souls players who are like veteran players be like, you can't panic. Like, if you take damage, back up, give some distance, heal, and just if you can take every enemy into a one-on-one situation, you're fine. Like, it's really easy. But some of the nuance of getting good at the game is getting large groups of enemies into one-on-one situations or picking them off, or like
you have to be very methodical.
Yep.
And I'm not a methodical gamer.
Oh, and I love it. Like,
I'm like I'm a run and gun hack and slash.
Well, see, and that's the funny thing is I think that's why I love stealth games is because it's the same thing.
Methodical.
It's like very methodical. You move from one thing to the next. You kind of have to pick out the pattern of, okay, this guy's going here. I can pick up this guy, go to this guy, and the same thing with this.
Doing the no kill run on Dishonored showed me the value in that. Mm-hmm. But then when I switched to all killing, it showed me the fun in that.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off. So Bloodborne,
nice.
And then in preparation for next week, talking live action movies from the anime adaptations, I watched the Ghost in the Shell movie with Scarlett Johansson. I was very pleasantly surprised. And I'm not going to dive too deep in this because we're going to do a whole discussion next week, but this may be blasphemous. It's fitting that Master Tilt is here. I think I like the live action movie better than the anime. It was just,
I feel like I probably will too, because when I watched the anime, I was like, I don't get it.
Yeah. You dodged a bullet. I haven't watched the anime because I've heard about it, and I was just like,
specifically,
I think I tried it.
Yeah,
I think I tried the anime, and I wasn't like too in love with it. So I had no real want to watch the movie other than to be like, to tilt other people, be like, no, Scarlett Johansson is fine in that role. I don't know what you're talking about, because in the show, the main character is Japanese, but it's Japanese in a European body. So the fact that Scarlett Johansson is, playing the role doesn't actually matter.
And it still keeps that in the movie, and it actually explains it. So it's kind of like, y'all were mad over nothing.
I know, right?
Like, it was like, it's literally part of the story. Like, it's a part of the narrative.
Josh, it's whitewashing in Hollywood, and I will not stand for it.
You said
apparently
it.
A flop.
And I mean, I'm not too surprised. But I think like what was so fun about it is some of the cinematography is so indicative of like the Matrix and stuff, but with modern CGI. And so as a result of that, there were some cool scenes where I was like, this is freaking awesome.
Online, that's what they were saying. It was like the cinematography and all that stuff.
Definitely.
Was good.
And it was, and I feel like the philosophy was more digestible and granted, I do love a good mindbender film, but I like a mindbender film that I can track, and then at the end I'm like, whoa. And I know everyone was like, well, they treat me like an idiot in this movie, in this adaptation. I was like, the first movie didn't tell you anything. Like, it's just like I think the last shot in the anime is her just like disassembled, and you're like, and then it just ends. You're like, what? Like what? It was a Neon Genesis Evangelion ending, and I hate those endings. So I'm sure if anyone out there who's a major Ghost in the Shell fan hears that, they're gonna lose their mind, but don't care.
Yeah, we'll dive into it next week.
Anyway, that's all I got.
Cool, Chris, you got anything?
Oh, is that all?
That's it. I have more things, but just kidding.
Yeah, I haven't been up to a whole lot. My life is pretty monotonous, but aside from dealing with real life things like planning a wedding, but other than that, like
that'll take a good chunk of time.
It actually didn't, though. Shout out to Casey for handling most of it. But no, let's see, what have I really been up to? Recently watched Captain Marvel and How to Train Your Dragon 3 on the same day. Both were great. Wow. If you missed was it the last thing that you guys reviewed, Captain Marvel? Or
yes.
Was that before? Okay, yeah, it's the last episode. Yeah, so if you missed that one and you need to hear it again, go watch it. And then How to Train Your Dragon 3 was also great. It's a good way to end the series. And if you haven't seen that series, get out of your rock, go watch them.
I saw the first one.
Smile, enjoy the fact that they gave axolotls wings. And if you don't know what an axolotl is, good luck trying to spell it and looking it up.
Is that a dragon?
No, it's a salamander.
Salamander
it's
thing.
those little salamanders with the things. It's basically.
Yeah, wasn't the real life inspiration for?
Yeah, so I think Toothless was modeled after an axolotl, but his behavior was after one of the creator's cats.
Interesting.
He does behave very much like a cat.
Yeah, he's a cat. Like they actually, I think they even like live cat, like whatever that motion capture, like took some like motion capture off of like home videos of the cat to help model his movements.
That's great,
and things.
actually.
That's funny.
But yeah, so there's that. As far as gaming, still real deep in Sea of Thieves.
Big surprise.
But it just keeps getting better.
Nice.
One day I'm going to drag you two into playing it, since I know you both have access to it. So
I
be
do
prepared.
have access, yeah.
You have no excuse now.
I know.
My only excuse is I just never feel like playing online.
What I just said, don't have the time. That's my excuse.
That's not an excuse.
Yeah.
Make time.
Schedule
your time.
The high seas.
Be like, these 2 hours are for Chris.
How am I supposed to be? my Chris time? My Chris time budget?
Yes, your Chris time.
All right, I'll work on it.
But then also, I finally found a battle royale that I can play. I'm not very good at it, but I still like it, which is Apex. That's about it. I have a friend, whenever I go to his place, I have a Breath of the Wild save account, so I'm finally starting to play that a little bit. It's always interesting playing a game with someone watching you, and then playing a game that someone's played already and is in the process of playing, and they watch you. One of the first experiences in that game, like there's like you have a bow and you come across like a bunch of like those weird goblin things, and they're like inside of a cave, and I was just like, or not a cave, a little stone hut, and I was like, there's explosive barrels in there. Oh, look, there's a little lantern over the explosive barrels. I wonder if I shoot that and if it'll fall, and like do that. And then he was like, all of my times playing this game, I never thought to do that. So it was just fun to do that. And also always getting upset because I was I'm always out of arrows.
Yeah.
Because I play ranged characters in everything, because that's just what life is about. And
See, I never play ranged characters because I always have to find arrows. I'm too lazy.
Yeah, like
you are so impatient. I'm learning this about you.
I'm a very impatient gamer.
Range characters are so good, but yeah, so that's been fun. But other than that, just kind of not doing too much. Also on Netflix, there's a docu-series called The 2000s that I just finished. That was pretty interesting. Just kind of like looking at all of the things that were coming up in pop culture, and even though I'm a 90s baby, I remember the 2000s better.
Oh, yes.
Because I was actually like more of like a teenager and making like real memories. And I also had access to a lot more in the 2000s than I did growing up in the 90s. And so, yeah, it was just kind of cool, like seeing all of the things like being talked through, and things that I didn't have a big grasp on, like the whole like economic collapse and like Wall Street and all that stuff. Just seeing it like talked about in a way when I actually can understand what's going on. It's just like, oh, that's messed up.
Just it was Netflix, you said?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's called The 2000s.
How long was it?
It's like 6 or 7 episodes. Each one of them is like 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay, so it's like episodic though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said docu-series.
Cool. I don't know what these things mean.
You're smart.
I don't watch documentaries.
I don't. Yeah, anything that starts with doc and video, I'm just like, what? Don't know what it is.
What? No. Yeah, but I'd actually recommend it. Like, it was good to just kind of like pop on and watch in the background and just kind of okay, that's actually it.
That's it.
You're sure? You're absolutely sure?
No, but I'm gonna leave it that way.
I don't have too much either. After watching Deadly Class, I went on a punk kick, so
yeah,
I looked up a list of top 10 like punk albums, and so there's I've got like Black Flag and Rancid and Minor Threat and Sex Pistols, and like I mostly looked up like best like definitive punk albums, not like modern punk or like best sounding punk albums, more like the defining genre ones that people kind of came up with, and I just made a playlist of all those albums on Spotify. But out of there, my favorites so far have probably been Rancid's album Out Come the Wolves, which is like super like, it's a lot of old school punk is very just like very gritty and like almost hard to listen to sometimes. You have to be in a certain mood to listen to it, but Rancid's it has like it feels like a bridge between the old and the new Punk in some ways. And then Minor Threat's album, it's just called The First Two 7-inches, I think. They just like re-released their first two 7-inches. And that one's really good. It's like old school, like hardcore punk.
Nice.
So those are my two faves from that. Watching Deadly Class got me on a punk kick. So in that vein, I reread Punk Rock Jesus over this weekend, and it's still a super fun comic. So I would highly recommend that to anybody.
$50 as Netflix picks that up as one of their next.
I think shows. So somebody actually owns the rights to it because he was doing an interview, and people were asking if he would ever write a sequel to it, and he said he would, but he doesn't own the rights anymore.
Oh,
because
interesting.
I think WB might own them, but they're kind of just holding on to it. So,
I could see. I mean, if the DC stuff,
because it's Vertigo, so
right,
yeah. So if they could do like,
they ever just finally let the DC stuff die,
I
it's
feel
time
like
to let the past die.
I feel like it would be a cool like Netflix series, maybe,
yeah,
or like Sci-Fi is doing with Deadly Class. I could see that working pretty
sure.
well. But yeah, it's a really fun comic. I enjoy it. And then I started rewatching Death Note. I didn't really mean to, but then I started watching it and I was like, oh, I forgot how good this was. So I like got like 30 episodes in already.
Nice.
So doing that for next week too, to have more context with
have you watched the live action yet?
No.
I'm not looking forward to it. I might do that tonight.
You guys haven't watched it yet?
No.
So I'll have to watch the live action Death Note. I'm probably going to watch the animated Ghost in the Shell tonight.
Yeah.
And then watch the two live action ones this week before.
I need you guys to let me know when you watch it. Just send me a reaction. I will need no context. I will understand. Yeah. I highly look forward to.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it because just rewatching the show, I'm like, there's no way they fit any of this nuance into a movie.
Yeah,
the entire premise of the show is predicated on very intense nuance with like how the characters interact.
Right,
and like.
People aren't
even after like watching the Ready Player one, I'm like, man, movies really throw out a lot when you like have to condense a lot of material into 2 hours.
Yeah, everybody's just too scared to do what I think people should do is just like automatically like go all in. Just be like, we're going to make this a trilogy. Just go in. So instead of like or something like that, or make it a 2-part movie, because then I think movie to or book to movie or anything like that would just be a little bit better because they have more time.
Which is why I'm a fan of a lot of the comic TV shows now, like Deadly Class and Umbrella Academy and stuff, because it gives it a lot of time to like actually breathe. And like reading the comic after having watched the show, I'm like, dang, they're actually like doing really well with like both being faithful to the comic, but also kind of recognizing like, okay, this is TV, not comics. We need to have a little bit more drama than is in the comic, and a little bit more character backstory than you necessarily need. So it's kind of cool seeing that, and it makes me excited for the future of book and comic adaptations in mediums. But
cool.
A couple news items before we jump into that discussion. So Halo Master Chief Collection is coming to PC finally, and Reach is being remastered and added on Xbox and PC,
which is pretty awesome.
Which I think that's the first one to come. Yeah. So for all those.
Read the book Reach. Don't play the game if you really care about the Halo story. That's all I have to say.
I have the book, but I haven't read it yet.
Read it.
But I love the game.
The book is better.
Is it?
The book is actually just much better.
That'll be the funny thing is technically you came up with this episode on the Christmas one this year, so I guess we'll have to do Reach game version.
Wait, did I actually come? Wait, I did come up with this.
Yeah, because you were like, "Have you read the book?" And we were both like, "No." He's like, "No, you should read it. It's better than the movie." And we were like, "Okay."
Oh, then, I did. Okay,
that's why you're here. I mean, we love you and all, but like you're here because you kind of came up with
here because this is my baby. All right.
Yes.
And then we took a DNA test. You are the father.
You are, in fact.
You are the father.
Hi, son.
You can't say that till after he's born.
Oh.
It'll be born in like an hour.
So on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When this is my episode, just be like,
everybody meet my son.
I'm a proud father.
I'm a proud father. And then the other news item is just that James Gunn is back on for Guardians 3.
Really?
So, yeah.
Yes.
I was pretty excited to hear that.
So now he's doing the Suicide Squad reboot and Guardians 3.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Which might suck because it means Guardians 3 is probably not happening for a long time.
But it means that he's running the show.
It means he's back on running the show.
I'm okay with waiting for
Guardians will actually be a good movie.
Also, you said a Suicide Squad reboot?
It's,
like a movie reboot?
Yeah.
They're rebooting something that happened once.
It was supposed to be a sequel, but I think James Gunn was probably like,
This sucks.
You expect me to follow this up? This is like having J.J. Abrams follow up The Last Jedi. Like this is just, don't make me do this, please.
So they already, with the Suicide Squad, Will Smith is out, and they got Idris Elba. They got Idris Elba as Deadshot, which I think will work. Yeah, he's a pretty good action star.
It'll be fine.
Yep.
So I mean, anything can be better than what that piece of trash was. I think. I can't
wait till this one comes out so they can redeem Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
because I feel like if anybody can do a team-based movie of misfits, then James Gunn can do it.
Like what's crazy is I never read the comics. I never cared about them at all. I just was like, oh, this is a really cool premise. I really like this. This seems like something I could really enjoy. And then they threw it up there, and I watched it, and I was like, what was that?
Well, the thing that makes was it at the end of Suicide Squad that they revealed Deathstroke, or was that Justice League?
No, it was Justice League.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was Justice League. Yeah.
Or no. It was it Justice League or was it Batman v Superman?
I don't think it was that far back.
I don't remember.
Because didn't he say something about an Injustice League, a team of like Injustice or something?
All I
remember.
But
that guy looked dope in that suit.
Yeah, he did.
I was like, I would take a Deathstroke film.
Yeah.
Some people thought Deathstroke was going to be the bad guy in the Batman film.
That would have been cool.
But that'd be kind of a cool movie, actually.
That would be
because they're both very similar, but opposite ideologies.
But of course, that's not going to happen because it makes too much sense.
Yep.
And DC just has to.
If it makes sense, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
So yeah, that's all the news I got. So yeah, I will throw out a little caveat before we start talking because people might be mad about this because I was doing some reading on the internet.
Dangerous thing to do.
Yeah. So for this discussion, we're not necessarily reviewing the movie itself on its own merit. I mean, we'll probably get into that a little bit and talk about what we actually enjoyed about it and whatnot.
Right.
But like the things we don't like about the movie aren't necessarily what makes it a bad movie in general, at least in my opinion. They're what makes it a bad adaptation of the book.
Yeah.
Because I think if I had watched this movie before I read the book, I would have a very different opinion about it. I think.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, we're probably going to go in on this movie. So if you like this movie and you have thin skin, please step away now.
Yeah.
Or listen so you can strengthen your skin, you little wimp.
You wuss bag.
And also learn to read. Read
Learn to read.
Read the book. If you don't have time to read the book.
The book's better. The book's better.
Yeah, I tried so hard not to turn into an elitist, but sometimes you just can't help it.
Dude, I went on the Reddit thread about this movie, it was a minefield. Some dude like listed out like verbatim exactly what I have in here. Like I read it after I wrote the list, and I'm like, dang, that's what I think. And then everybody just railed on him. They're like, you don't even hate the movie, you just hate the fact that it's not the book. And I'm like, oh snap, we're in trouble.
Oh snap!
Back up,
dude. If this is what gets us hate mail, I'm all for it.
Let's
do it. My
great.
goal with some of these is like, I want the hate mail, baby.
Yeah.
I want to be punked.
So this is almost unintentionally going to be like a mini tilt.
It's like a mini tilt. Yeah. Definitely.
Definitely my
now
child.
That the caveat, it's your what?
Like father, like son.
It's definitely my child.
So I'm curious because I did not do a lot of research on the backstory. I just kind of went in blind. What is the general reception? Like, are the people who hate the movie the people who are like, book is better? Is it just people who saw the movie who like the movie?
At least on Reddit, and that's I feel like the Reddit people are
most vocal.
Us, basically.
Sure.
Like most people on Reddit.
Don't group me up with those scrubs. I don't touch Reddit.
I've seen people posting on Reddit that remind me of you.
I am
like,
not.
is that Chris?
I'm actually not on Reddit at all.
That's kind of funny. Actually.
I like go there every once in a great while, but it's mainly to find streams. To be honest.
Yeah. So I'm on Reddit and I actually enjoy it, but I don't post on it because people are pretty rabid.
Yeah.
But most of the subreddits I follow aren't like the really intense ones. I don't follow any like social or political ones. It's all games. But even the games ones get intense sometimes.
Of course.
But yeah, so I think on Reddit, from what I saw, like most of the people who like vehemently despised the film, like who felt like I did after I watched it, were people like all of the reasons they list were just because it wasn't the same as the book. And then basically like everybody who was replying to them was like, you just hate the movie because it wasn't like the book, not because it was a bad movie. And then it was kind of like this very intense back and forth. But there was also a lot of positive comments about how like they had people who hadn't read the book were like, this was a fun movie.
Sure. That makes sense.
But I think going into it, I I don't think I ever would have watched this movie if we hadn't have done this episode, because like it looked interesting enough to me.
Sure.
And the part that I hated most about the book is the most faithful part about the movie, I think, is like and this is what the author has said too, that he likes about it, is like the focus on like nostalgia and like pop culture references. And like, that was my least favorite part about the book, and it annoyed me towards the end. And I think the movie, in some respects, kind of did that well, and I think that's what people liked about it. It's a different type of nostalgia. It's geared towards like our type of people.
I am so ready to take those people on. I am so ready for them.
Wait, what do you mean?
Oh, just the people who think that you don't like the movie just because you think it's because it's not the book. No, the movie is actually garbage on its own merits.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I would agree.
It's so bad.
So,
like,
all right, let's get into this.
One more quick thing. Just to like kind of like strengthen your Reddit argument. Everybody that I've come across IRL that really enjoyed the movie haven't read the book.
Yeah.
And the people who hated the movie were people who had read the book. And I actually was going to watch the movie before I read the book, and one of my friends was like, "No, read the book." And I was on vacation last year, and I was just like, looking for something to fill the time while I was just like relaxing and chilling, and so I found the book at a bookstore. Those still exist, and just bought it and read the book, and I really liked it. So then I watched the movie.
I feel like watching the movie made me question whether or not I actually liked the book.
Interesting.
Okay.
Like it made me wonder if like, and we could kind of dive into the details about this stuff, but like when I finished the movie, I was sitting there like, did I even like the book now? Like I don't remember. Like it was kind of like, it made me feel like it's a weird feeling. Like I literally felt kind of angry after watching it. Like,
interesting.
And I couldn't describe it because Evan started watching it with me, but she got bored and just like started doing other stuff. But she was kind of still sitting there, and she saw me like sitting there, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like really confused about how I feel about this movie."
Sure.
And now I'm questioning whether I even enjoyed the book or not.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like in my mind, it's like jumbled up now.
So I tried really hard to go into this and watching the movie as like, I know, and I think this is part of it too, is I went into the movie knowing, even before any, like, I know, Chris, you had said, like, book is better than the movie. Before anything, I just knew that based on how book to movie adaptations, or just any, like, written long-form content to visual usually translates, they cut out a lot of stuff. And so a lot of me was like, totally fine. Let's see what they do with it. And I think it's interesting, and I don't want to over-reference to cut out from next week, but it was something that Ghost in the Shell, the live action, did really well, is like they kept the set pieces, but they like rewrote it, like everything almost, to a point where it's like there's nostalgic moments from the anime that I specifically remembered and was like, oh, that's super cool to see in like a live action, like special effects and all this stuff. And then there's other stuff where it was like, oh, that's completely new and it makes more sense. I feel like my biggest beef with the film is that it was such a stark transition from the book. They should have just completely redone it. Like, just gutted it completely. Maybe keep the same character names and all that stuff, but just redone everything.
Like the same world,
like 2 hours.
But
same
then
world,
tell a different story.
Tell a different story, or keep the same characters and just realize that, like,
no, get rid of all of the characters. It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like, it's weird. I loved the book. I really enjoyed it. And I think one of the big reasons, though, is that it was very well written in terms of I was able to get through it really quickly. I think if it would have been really dense and really hard to read, it would have sucked.
For sure.
But I was able to chew through like 50 pages in like a half hour, 45 minutes, which, I mean, I don't know how fast it is, but
That's
felt like
fast.
I mean, it felt like I was like zipping through it of like, okay, I'm getting in the information. I kind of knew like, okay, this is interesting. I'm kind of going to slow down and digest. Other stuff was like, okay, this is a reference to this thing. I'm like, okay, got it, reference to this thing. And I just was able to kind of chew through it. Yeah. And I think the other thing too is that the book has such high stakes that are consistent throughout that I wanted to see what happened next. I was like, I know he already is going to get it, but it's like, oh, but like, how are they going to handle this? And what is this going to do? And how is it? And it was fun. It was fun to see. Mm-hmm. It was like one of the first times reading a story where it was like, man, I want to see what happens next. No, it's not like the greatest mind-bending movie or book that I've ever experienced, but I want to see what happens, and I'm excited to see what happens next. Yeah. However, what the movie I think did the worst, and then I'll just kind of throw out to see what your guys' general thoughts were. What the movie did the worst is all the stakes to me in the book were completely gutted.
Oh yeah, they just gutted the book. Yeah,
and to me that is the biggest flaw I think in the movie. That to me is reprehensible in terms of the adaptation of like the whole reason to me that the book is interesting is because the whole idea behind it is there's like social statuses, there's a lot of cultural commentary, there's a lot of things around internet culture that are being discussed. This is kind of the subtext of the book. And as a result of that, it's like I'm trying to imagine like, okay, we're kind of dealing that with net neutrality, and I'm sure that kind of fed into it. You know, like, well, what happens when the government or whoever gets to say like, well, you pay more money, so Netflix gets to have a faster streaming rate than like X company or this company or whatever. And what all of a sudden this commodity that we take for granted is like just natural daily life is regulated in a way that favors people who are more wealthy or do have more. And I'm like, that's really fascinating. So this game isn't just about, well, I hope the main guy gets the egg. That'd be really neat. Yeah. It's literally like the world is gonna crash and burn, and it's like everything's gonna get worse if this doesn't happen.
Yeah, they didn't explain the stakes in the movie at all. Like,
exactly. No, they didn't.
If you hadn't read the book, I feel like you wouldn't really get why it's bad for this company,
right? Exactly.
Unless you just assume like, oh, company bad, people good.
Exactly.
I think it was actually like really bad. Like the only stakes they really kind of said was that they wanted to sell ad space.
That was it.
Like that was,
which is like the most like shallow. Like we could sell ad space. We could cover up every inch of their face.
80% of a player's field of view we can do. It's like, all right, cool. Like that's not all that's at stake here. Like they can literally just have. I mean, I guess actually
in the book they owned apartments. They owned all of the streams to the internet and stuff.
And when I actually think about it, though, they did, but in a very weird way. That if you missed it, you missed it. Kind of like when he was an intern in the movie. And that was like really weird. And they're like, yeah, he was Halliday's intern. And they had like a really bad, like, it's supposed to be him younger, but it's clearly
what
not.
If we had paid tiers.
Yeah, they kind of
good coffee.
So they kind of feed to you why the company is bad. And because in the book he wasn't actually the leader of, like, he wasn't actually the CEO of the company. He was just the head of a department. But in the movie, he's actually the head of the company. And so when you like put two and two together, like in the movie, it's like, oh, like he's the head of this company and this is where his mind is at. Like give people paid tiers and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it
kind of like builds the stakes, but it doesn't lay them out for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of does require you to put the pieces together. And I can't believe I'm saying something that sounds good about the movie because trust me, I don't like it. But it's there. It's just not done well.
It is there, but it's very shallow. I think like the way they do it is just like the most like. Basically, the first thing you could think of when you think of like, what would a corporation do if they owned the internet? Cover our faces with 80% ad space. Like,
right. Turn into Facebook.
You can come up with a more nuanced like version of that. Which in a book, I feel like they lay the groundwork more. So like, you really believe like, oh, this corporation has a lot of like hands in everything. Like they own the suits and I mean they own his suit that he's using and all this stuff. But I don't know.
Well, and I think the other thing too with the stakes is that it isn't just so there is the level of. You have the macro stakes of like the internet is basically, I mean, I'm just going to call it the internet because term the oasis or whatever, i.e. the internet.
It's the internet, yeah.
The internet
like
is basically,
internet,
like if the VR internet is really up for grabs. And you've got obviously the money hungry control people who just want to win it so that they get complete control over charging people more money. They make more money, whatever. It was like generic. However, to me, what made the stakes not necessarily more graspable, but more palpable in the book was that it isn't just that they have a lot of money and they're like, yeah, we want money. It was like, and we have the money to go kill you. And we are. And they, and so it's like, I almost wish this movie would have been R, and that sounds, I have a bigger, my biggest complaint is this shouldn't have been a movie. This should have been a Netflix series. And I think if they would have done that, because I think to me, the effect of the movie that is completely absent is like what kept me reading the book is I finish a chapter and it's Wade being like, and Artemis just got the next key, and you're it's just got interesting, dude.
Yeah, like the interesting part about it was like you want to know what the key does, where the next key is going to get unlocked, and what kind of challenge he's going to have to complete. What does the riddle mean? What is
exactly?
Like, how do you solve this challenge? Like all that stuff was like, man, I got to figure out how like this all plays out. Yeah, and they got rid of that in the movie, and the key like. there was a lot less steps with the keys. It was like,
oh yeah,
the key just unlocks the door, and there is no next riddle to get to the door. It was like, oh, once you get the key, you just unlock the door right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Come get your clue.
Yeah.
Well, and this is another thing. So I'm curious, did they break a rule from the book in that Artemis, I think, is the only one who gets the jade key? Remember? Because they do this whole recreation of The Shining, and she's the only one in the...
How did they get away with that?
Exactly. So that's what I don't understand too. Is it's like you basically just broke rule number 1 from the book, which is
the key.
You don't share the key. You have to get it yourself.
Actually, they broke another rule, a more important rule, and then they made it even like they did it. So you know how in the book you're stationary for 1 minute while you're logging out, and you're completely vulnerable. In the movie, you instantly log out, but only sometimes, and only when it doesn't create drama and like a dramatic effect.
Sure.
Which is something that when I was watching it and I caught on it, and I was like, whoa, this is what? Because like when he's like when he's with H or when he's with Artemis and they're talking and like they dissolve into pieces, which is them like logging out by pulling off the headset or the visor or whatever, they instantly log out. And then suddenly they're just like, you can't do that later in the movie. So like when they're going to blow the Cataclysm and they're running to some weird logout portal, and they're like, when like IROC's avatar is like running toward it because he's like, no, I don't want to lose all my stuff, and then he's just like running and trying to get out, and he gets blown up.
Well, was that because they were inside of a dungeon?
Well, I think that's his point.
You can't log out inside of the dungeons, but you can log out.
But I think that's Chris's point, and this maybe obviously clarify.
Yeah, like
because that's two different issues. Like
maybe
you were arguing
like,
nuance, but like
maybe they are
a delayed logout versus like not being able to log out at all in dungeons. But maybe that's the difference.
I guess in that case though, then why did the people who died just not see that there was an explosion about to happening? Yeah. Because it's like really slow for some whatever reason, and just instantly log out.
Yeah,
like why didn't they just log out then?
Yeah.
You know, like, but like in the book, you can't log out because you're just literally stationary for, you're literally just vulnerable and you die anyway, which makes sense. But in the other thing, I guess they might be in a dungeon. It was just like a really weird, like it was so poorly put together.
Well, they didn't really explain the rules in the movie because they were inside, like once they got inside of the castle, that's when the challenge started, wasn't it?
Kind of.
And once you're in the challenge, if you log out, you lose the key, I think, or something like that.
Well, see, and I don't remember that. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
You never lost the key in the book, though.
Yeah.
Even if you died, you still had access to the key. Which was weird because they said that Wade found that rule out later that keys couldn't be transferred or lost, but they never actually explained how he found that out. But even then, like it was mentioned in the book, like you can't transfer, you can't lose the key. So I guess even if you log out in the dungeon, you don't lose the key, which is still really weird.
I think at the base of that is there's a lot of rules in the book that are very specific and lead to a situation, and they're explained early on to explain if I'm in a life or death situation, this is why I don't just yank off my headset. And so I think to your point, Chris, you have all these other moments where it's like, okay, Wade knows that the Cataclysm is going off, and in every other thing they've been saying,
or like when they get attacked by the Sixers in the dance club, like why didn't they just log out instead of just fighting? Like that's not a dungeon. It's just it's a
public place.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's because it's a PvP zone, but they don't tell you. And that's the biggest thing is that it's like, are you
the rules to the quote unquote magic are inconsistent.
And I think that was one of my biggest issues as to why the movie is actually just a bad movie on its own, is that everything is incredibly rushed and just nothing, even the basics aren't explained. Like you can't really go back and build a structure to explain things that is consistent. And that is why, like, obviously good movies have plot holes and things like that, but this one is just riddled with them. And to the point where the movie itself isn't really that enjoyable on its own merit, I think. It's just because you just watch it and you're like, okay, like, oh, Halliday is supposed to like pop culture references and things like that. That's what he based this whole thing around. But really the only thing that has a pop culture reference is a reference to The Shining, which, unpopular opinion, I think is one of the most overrated movies ever recommended to me. But
that's a different story. But
but like
that's a good point.
But like all of the pop culture is in the background, but it's not really a focus of the actual race itself, like the actual the hunt. Like, the first challenge, it's a race, okay? Like, King Kong is in it. There's a random T-Rex. Okay, are we supposed to like think that this is Jurassic Park or like what is this race? Like, is this a Need for Speed or like a Fast and Furious thing?
Yeah,
like
all the pop culture was peripheral to the story.
Yeah, like which doesn't make any sense because it was literally said in the movie he was obsessed with pop culture and that's what's inspired this Easter egg hunt. But there's no pop culture in it at all.
Yeah,
and it's just really
well, and I think that's one of the biggest problems with the movie is like it's just got a veneer on it. Like it's got like the pretty like top level thing, like everything looks cool and there's like, oh, there's the Halo guys and there's the like there's the Overwatch characters and there's like all these like references, but like you're saying, none of it actually like plays a part in the story itself. It's all just like a covering. It's all just like a skin,
just like and just trying to like bring it back into what the whole point of the podcast was supposed to be, which was like that's why this particular adaptation from book to movie was like so jarring, is that in the book the pop culture was so important. That was it, literally what you needed to go forward. Like it wasn't just some random thing you said like, I wish you could go fast, backward, pedal to the metal as fast as you could. Like, I got it. Yeah,
I hate it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like, it's not that. It's that, you know, like there is this tomb that was from like D&D, which was really just like coming into its own and like getting really popular in the 80s. Like, okay, it's like, oh, like I actually need to know about this tomb. I need to know about this pop culture thing. I need to know how to play this game. I need to know all of these things to actually participate in this contest, whereas in the movie you don't need to know. Like you just don't. You just randomly pop up and you're like, okay, cool, like some long forgotten person found the first gate and like, okay, cool, thanks book movie for just fast forwarding the first like 3 chapters of the book and like doing it so lazily.
Well, and I think that's the thing too, is the book is, to your point, Chris, too, I think that was the biggest thing that kind of set me off to how they did use the pop culture, is it is peripheral. And I think as a result of that, everything that they reference in the book is puzzle pieces. That's how it's utilized. Whereas this, it's like, hey, it's Goro from Mortal Kombat. Like, hey, it's, you know, it's like 50 Master Chiefs running in the field or whatever. It's never used to forward the plot or to withhold information. And I think as a result of that, you have these really awful payoffs. Like the book has so many payoffs of like, he beat it. He did it. He moved this thing and he figured it out.
Yeah, he played a perfect game of Pac Man.
Exactly.
And that's how he gets the extra thing. It's not because he knew that there was only one mention of this person who somehow mentioned to be like, I don't remember, what was her name? Kira? Yeah, Kira. Like her only Lucosia was her name in D&D.
Yeah. Yep.
But like there's no, that in the movie was just like so dumb. I hate it. Like, no, Lucosia is only like Kira's only mentioned once, and he flips the quarter to him, and I was like, seriously,
no, you didn't.
Yeah, like that's how you did it. And it's just like,
well, and I think that points to a bigger problem of like all, like you said with Ghost in the Shell, like all of the set pieces that in the book played an important role in like building this sort of narrative were just completely stripped out for some reason.
But they left everything else the same.
I think partially it's because like nobody wants to sit there and watch a dude play an arcade game for that long. But I feel like you could get rid of the arcade and have him still go to the dungeon, and instead of like playing the arcade with the wizard, just have him battle the wizard. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It still like has the pop culture tie-in with the D&D stuff, but then you can get like the action scenes that you want for a
in order to get the quarter, like he could have just been like, they could have kept the Pac Man thing in there, and in order to fast forward,
I think that one would have worked.
You literally just have him just be like really bored and like bored out, like dumb out of his luck, and he's like, oh, I never noticed that this was here. Like, oh, this is weird. Like plugs it in and just like starts playing a game of Pac Man, and then just like, oh, maybe like, and then just have him just randomly play a perfect game because he knows how to play it, and then he gets the quarter. Like you could have done that in like a minute and a half. It would have been so easy for them to do that, but no, they just completely got rid of yet another reason why the book was so like either hated or interesting, is because of how heavy-handed with the pop culture references.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that like the quarter thing, that was an Easter egg in and of itself.
Yeah,
like him figuring that out and kind of solving it, and
then
the quarter had stakes in the book. Like you're like, oh, that's what the quarter, like, because you knew it was going to do something
exactly.
And in that moment when he died, I was like, the quarter.
Exactly.
Like, that's gonna do something. And then,
see, I didn't think of that until after he like came back, and I was like, wait, what? And he
Like,
pulled
how
out
does
the
that
quarter,
work?
and I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's
like
so cool.
it's kind of
yeah.
like you get that feeling though. Whereas in this one, I was like, oh, come on.
Well,
no.
and to add
and
on
maybe
to
that's
this,
because I had read the book, so I
No,
knew
but-
what the quarter meant.
But I think this is the thing, though, is the effect. This is the thing. The quarter. So we keep just talking about
The quarter.
In the book.
By the way, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put a tag on it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I know.
So I think this is the thing that the movie completely botched in terms of what the point of the quarter moment with Pac Man in the book is. The entire time he's doing, like, for Wade and for all these other Gunters, pop culture is a tool to be used. It's a means to an end.
Yep.
And so the entire book, it's like, I watched this movie 70 times, not because I love it, but because Halliday loved it, and I got to figure. And this is the first time in the entire book that he's completely off track. He is not even close to where he's supposed
But
to
he
be in
just
terms
takes
of the
the time
journey.
to beat this high
but he's
score.
like playing Pac-Man, and he's like, it's... Because I think it happens that someone else gets the key at a different spot, and then he's like, I'm in the wrong spot. And he's like, well, I'll just do this anyway.
I think it wasn't that. It was that he was there, and he's like, everybody's been here before. He goes there because he's just like on his, like, he's trying to figure it out, and then he's like, whatever, like, someone, and then he knew he was on the wrong track, but he started playing
anyway,
and then someone got the key while he was playing.
Exactly.
He was like
So
on his
he's
last
like,
round, and somebody got the key.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I'm in the wrong spot. Like, I might as well just finish it off. And all of a sudden, that moment that's the first time Wade as a character is choosing to enjoy pop culture as a means to just enjoy it, not to get to this bigger thing. And that, I think, is what the weight of the getting that extra life means. Is it isn't just like, hey, here's a plot device. Like, that's essentially what happens in the movies. It was
a little character moment. Like,
exactly,
he's learning to step back and like kind of like realize like this whole treasure hunt isn't like worth.
Well, and that the greater reward of him realizing that this was all here to be enjoyed, not to be used. Is his reward is a second chance, essentially. So to me, there's a whole bunch of depth even in that one moment. Whereas in the movie, it's just like, oh, you got a fact right. Here's an extra life. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's not how they describe it in the moment. But as us, and like,
yeah,
I reacted the exact same way to you, Phil, where I was like, are you serious?
That's what I did too. I was like, what?
You're like, why? Because we know what that means. And so it's like, you just took out all the importance of developing Wade as a character by dumbing that down and making it just that he got a fact right. Like, you took it all away. So there's no payoff for that. And there's no, it's like at the end, I was like, oh, and he's still going to be alive. And and even in the ending of the movie sucked. It was
I wanted to see that
bad.
warehouse just jam-packed with all the game systems. I wanted to see that.
Exactly. Like, there's so many things.
And it's just like this weird ice cavern that people are, oh, another one fell in the ice. Yeah, wrong like, game. It's just like this girl with the red hair just keeps going.
Yeah. It's like so
like,
overacted.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Like, it was actually adventure. Adventure is this thing. And then
it's like this whole nerd out moment. I'm like, that's supposed to be Wade doing that.
Exactly. Well, can we acknowledge something too? That like, why are all the Sixers cheering when Wade is about to win?
Yeah.
Like,
they're like all on his side.
They're like,
magically.
It was like, wait, I thought you all hated him. Like, I thought, and to me, that's the point of the book, is that it's like they're indentured servants and they're miserable there. Mm-hmm. And it's like all these people, it's like they just look like they're jacked on energy drinks, and then they're all like talking 50 miles an hour about the same thing.
Yeah.
And at the end, they're like, yeah, let's go Wade. I'm like, wait a second, what? Like, now that it was like, okay, so you're communicating to me that they don't want to be there, but you've never said it the rest of the movie, and there's all these weird close-ups that they do with certain people.
To be fair.
Sorry,
backing up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So to be fair, the zoology department in IOI is not in indentured servants.
Yeah. Right, they are.
Yeah, they're all actually supposed to be there.
Exactly, but to me, that was what is weird, is if I was trying to communicate that these people, like, to pay off the movie versus the book, I think, to me, one of the biggest things is they don't know how to pay off the right stuff, or they pay off the wrong stuff. And so, like, when you have them cheering at the end, it's not that they're cheering that I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. It's more like, then an hour earlier, you should have shown them being chewed out by Sorrento and them being like, man, I wish I didn't have to do this to support my family. Yeah. Or like, I wish I didn't have to do this to whatever.
Yeah. It just, it just didn't make any sense.
It was like, wait, why are you happy? Like, you have no reason to be.
Yeah, it's like you're cheering. It's like you're cheering that you just lost the Super Bowl. Like, congratulations.
And your
like,
corporation is going to hate you now because they lost.
Yeah,
right.
Like,
exactly.
Yeah, we just lost our jobs.
Yeah,
Woo! Like
exactly.
The sole purpose of this entire department is to find this Easter egg. And now that these 5 years are over,
right? It's like you all just are fired.
Also, they're very bad with the timeline in this one too.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the things that another part of this adaptation that was so bad is that they just didn't properly build up any stakes. Like in the movie, it's just go, and that's all it is. It's just constant gas all the time. There's no like sit down and relax moment, anything like that. It's just constant gas. Whereas in the book, it takes its time, and that in and of itself builds tension. It builds tension. Like you're just like, okay, like 4 months go by and nobody does anything. Like, okay, but it's been 4 months.
Yeah,
you know,
and you as the reader, you have that sense of urgency. You're like, what are you doing? Wait 4 months. You gotta find this.
Yeah,
thing.
like four
but
months.
In the movie,
like,
it's
come
just
on.
like.
Yeah, and it's like,
octane.
and then also in one of the things where I'm going to finally like broach the subject. Like he's spending all of his time with Artemis in the book, and it's like, dude, like stop. Like, what are you two doing? Like, both of you have a vested interest in this. Why are you guys doing this? Like, stop taking the time to like nurture your internet relationship, which, by the way, in the book, if you haven't read it, it's a whole lot less creepy in the book than it is in the movie.
Yeah.
I would just like to say that. Absolutely. It's a little weird because obviously like Parzival is like infatuated with Artemis right away, but they actually explain it better in the book. Like they actually like build up and like,
well, he likes her because he's been following her blog for like however many
for
years.
Like 3 or 4 years, and he's just like, oh, like this is, you know, I've been watching her and like I just met her, like, oh, this is really, really cool. Whereas in the movie, she's just some random person he watches his Twitch streams, like
exactly.
But also, why was that her first time at the race ever?
I don't know.
I didn't understand that. It's like, was it her first time or not there at the race? Well, because if she's a world famous gunter, why is that her first time at the race? Because when he sits there and like he, you know, gets his DeLorean, which, by the way, that they actually kept that true. They've kept that faithful in the movie, which I was proud of, but also hated because it's stupid. But like, you know, when she pulls up and he's like, "Is that Artemis? I think that's Artemis. I watch all of her Twitch streams and all of this stuff."
You're just
and
like
it's just like,
dude.
It's like, okay, cool, but like, if she's supposed to be like a gunter in her own right, why is this her first time there? Like, why is this her first time at this race? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I feel like that was a big complaint of mine, is like the character interactions between those four. Like, they were all of a sudden all just friends.
Five.
Five.
Yeah, show and die, which honestly should have just been written out of the movie. Like, they were so poorly done in the movie that it would have actually done it better. To just completely write them out.
And I mean, they turned it into like an entourage, but like in the book, they make it very explicit, like, we do not want to team up until the very end.
No one does. No one in the entire none hunt for the egg want, and that's
until he sends that email.
Exactly.
Nobody is teaming up.
Exactly.
But the whole movie is basically like the last third of the book where everybody's finally teaming up to like defeat them. They like kind of extended that part to the whole story. And I was like, you ruined the whole point of all of their relationships. Like,
yeah, and
it's supposed to be like this really tentative, like, okay, like, I like you, but we're not helping each other.
And
like,
Artemis and Parzival stop talking until he finds the egg, basically. Or like, they kind of start communicating towards the end when they go to what's his name's house, which dude, I wanted to see that.
Right, exactly. But and that to me, and I wonder if this is another big portion too, is the book isn't overly dark, but it's dark. There's a lot of like death. There's a lot of people who get murdered. Like, is it Daito? Daito gets murdered. Literally gets murdered.
Yeah, I think it was Sho that got murdered.
Was it Sho that got murdered?
I think so.
One of the brothers.
But one of the two gets murdered
in the book.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a moment of like, oh snap, because
the stakes are real again.
Exactly, and because of what they've already established early in the book. IOI is out for Wade Watts, and then when he finds out that they're hunting the other three, it's like, oh crap, like they're gunning for them, and they have the money, they have the resources, like they're screwed. How are they going to get out of this? Whereas in this, it was like, I understand that you don't want to kill a kid or like you want to kill a character in this movie, but at the same time, like, why? The whole point of the contest is it's cutthroat. The whole book is about these gunters who are like, I'm going to be the one. And even when they do share information with each other, they're like, if you effing tell anybody.
Like, like, I will find you.
It's like,
I will kill you.
Exactly. Whereas in this, it's like, well, hey, H, let's go on an adventure. Oh, Artemis, you come along too. And then it's like all these people just buddying up and doing this thing. It's like,
and then like you said in the Shining scene, she is the only one who actually completes it and gets the key. And how do they all get to do the challenge together?
And that is the whole thing. The whole last battle scene.
They change the rules.
Exactly. The whole last battle scene in the book is we literally need to get everyone to punch a hole in this thing so that one of us can get there. Yeah. And once we get there, it's whoever left,
gets it.
That's what happens. Yeah. And in this, it was just like, okay, so you all have a key apparently, and like, how did Wade get the key if only Artemis got it? But is it based on like if everyone is like doing it together,
it's
they
like
all get a key
or something,
right? So is it like that all of a sudden? But why didn't you explain that, especially if it's different than from what the source material says?
Yeah,
it was just all over the place. It was
also
just,
one of my favorite parts in the book was when he like gets himself indentured.
Yes.
And comes up with this whole scheme.
Oh my god, that was
and he like sets up the bomb thing in the castle, and he like has this whole plan, and he's like going in the back channels of their thing. And in the movie, they're like, we're not gonna have him indentured at all, and we're just gonna have the girl do it, and like Artemis, and like it's just they come up with a plan of how to get him out.
Never mind. The Sixers were indentured because she was a Sixer.
Yeah.
Never mind. I take back my previous thing.
She snuck out of hers, and she
got arrested by like all those other people.
But like they should have known by her employee number, which was started with a 6, and the employee numbers were different for indentured servants because that makes sense, but whatever. Anyway,
if anything, if I have a big plot, I would want to work at IOI because they don't care about anything. It's like that's what it seems like.
Maybe this is the problem with both the book and the movie, but how is this billion-dollar corporation being beaten by a bunch of individuals?
I don't know.
How are they not like they have an entire squad of like master's level scholars on this person.
Yeah, like they
and
literally
none of them can
have
solve these rules for 5 years, just like an individual who's like somehow has the time to watch every TV show from the 80s.
Yeah, they also like their collective knowledge should have been so much more. That is a little weird. Like I don't understand how people just didn't start scanning planets for a recreation of that tomb in the book. Like
I mean, in the book he says they don't do it because it's like a school planet.
Like no one anticipated.
Yeah, like no one anticipated. But even then, like just run a database of all of the known planets. Like someone has to. There's 5 years. Like IOI has 5 years and all of the resources at its disposal. They could have literally just scanned every single planet that they know of and just be like, all right, let's just run them through the system. Look for this. And we'll dedicate like 0.0004 of our entire processing power to running this. It doesn't matter how long it takes because even if someone else finds it first, they can just get there. Like, so IOI really just doesn't have to do anything. They just like, and that was kind of like the whole point. It's just like they have to finish it because IOI is right there, which also kind of
in the book they kind of played up a little bit more that IOI is like they're both trying to get it, but at the same time like they're almost like puffed up, like they're confident like once somebody finds it, like they'll get it. Yeah. And so like that's when they start building reinforcements and stuff.
And that to me is I think an interesting thing in the book versus the movie, and it's not to defend it because I think inherently at the core of this style of story you have a huge, not necessarily problem, but something that you have to just kind of take as it just is what it is, in that someone has to find it. Someone has to figure out the clue. And if it's your main character, it almost no matter what, even if it was the rest of the story was incredible, it's like they have to solve the mystery somehow. And because of the material,
they do that well because
they give it time.
Sorrento is when he's playing Pac Man. Sorrento's the one who finds the crystal key at that point,
right? And so, what I'm saying even earlier, just in general, like the feeling of like, well, why didn't IOI just do this, or like how did their 500 people who were like masters on all this content not find it earlier? And I think it's a narrative device to give the other characters an upper hand, or to at least make it interesting. And I think it makes sense because you could have the most genius person in the world, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to know how to do something that they're just doing because they're forced to.
Yeah.
But I think in the movie what was difficult is like all the puzzles just sucked, and all the like the progression. They weren't even
puzzles.
They were puzzles. It was like,
just say a weird line, and you're like,
yeah, like I said,
I'm like, that's not how you solve a puzzle.
Exactly.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with. Also, the first puzzle, the race. How long? Like, I don't remember how long it's been.
5 years
in the that they say in the actual like movie.
Oh.
But like, they've got the first puzzle. Everybody's just jamming and driving and stuff like that. How, in God's name, did nobody drive backward that entire time?
Just even on accident.
Like, because like
yeah, no, like,
like I'm looking yeah, exactly. I'm looking at two gamers. I'm assuming that at least some of the people that listen to this podcast are part, like, you know, casual to like hardcore gamers. If you've ever played a racing game, one of the things you do after you get bored with something and it's super monotonous is you literally turn around and you drive backward. You do that. Exactly you right. Get so bored of a racetrack doing something over and over again. You're like, you know what? Like Need for Speed Most Wanted. That had an Xbox Live component. Guess what people did on Need for Speed Most Wanted? One of the tracks, you literally just turned around and you drove backwards and you got outside of the map so you could do whatever you wanted. You are dealing with gamers. There are gamers doing this race. After like the first 50 times of everybody dying to Kong, why did someone not go into reverse before?
Yeah,
that is the stupidest setup right there. You could have like done anything, but one of the things that made it so unbelievable at the very beginning of the movie was that it was something that any gamer would have understood. Like, okay, let's just go backward. Like, let's just drive around and see what's around here, because clearly doing this race isn't. So why is everybody going full metal to try to win the race? It's obvious that you can't.
Yeah, like, you think after 5 years, like,
people just dying over and over.
What are you going to figure out how to get past this monkey after 5 years? Like,
yeah,
right. It's not like a mind puzzle that you just haven't figured out. It's like a physical thing. Like, you've been doing the same thing for 5 years.
Yeah,
like,
honestly,
that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah, like
right.
you're losing all of your stuff. You're losing your entire like your profile, all that stuff, because you keep dying. They explained that, like, when you die, you lose everything. So these people who keep dying, they lose everything only to build it up, come back, and lose everything.
You might as well
again
take a chance losing everything and smash into the wall behind you.
Right. So why would you not go backward? That's like right there. That is one of the worst adaptations ever, because like you could tell they didn't consult gamers. Like, just like, wait, the big reveal is supposed to be that you drive backward.
You just go in reverse and you're like, right there.
And it's referenced to in some really random part of the journals that I just wish we could just go backward. Like,
can we talk about that for a second? Because okay, so here's my thing. I wonder if one of the big issues that they did in this movie is they don't mask where the first gate even is. Like, I think right from like the first 2 minutes you're in the movie, it's
you
like
already know
that the first gate is there and you got to win the race. And so everyone's just flooding in. It's this massive cars and it's like chaotic. And I think to me that's where the story should have completely been altered and adapted. Is it should have been they know where the gates are, but every puzzle. So then it makes it more interesting. It's like, okay, let's say Wade figures out the first one, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe all the other puzzles aren't actually at all what they're about. It's about something else. And then it's like, oh, good thinking, Wade Watts. But instead it's like, no, just go to this place, wander around. Oh, just drive backwards. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
And because to me at the end, it even gives a bigger payoff to like, that pissed me off so much when he's standing in front of like Anorak or whatever the frick his name is, the wizard dude, and he's like, sign your papers or whatever, and he's about to sign, and he's like, no, I remember this one thing that you said the biggest regret of your life was signing over all your things like that, and I'm not going to do it because it's a test. And he's like, I just wanted to make sure. like, it was just one of those moments of like, there's no payoff in that moment, and it's such a forced situation because the rest of the movie has just been dumb luck of like getting to all this stuff. They already know where everything is. They just got to do it basically.
Yeah.
Like, there's no challenge. They don't actually have to do the contest, which is what the whole book is about.
Yeah, they keep just stumbling upon it.
Yeah. Exactly.
In the book, like, every time they get something, they deserve it in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They earned it. They figured it out.
Or if they didn't get it, they deserved not getting it.
Exactly.
Like, because they've been dating a girl online for like 5 months, or they've been kind of like being misguided and stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things that they completely like did poorly in the movie was develop Halliday as a character, because in the book he's dead, but they develop him in a character in ways that like he is a narcissistic jerk. Like, that is what he is. That is who Halliday is. He is like socially inept. Like, they understand that, like, you know, he had some issues, so like he forced people to see the world in the way that he did and enjoy the world the way he did. Whereas in the book or in the movie, he just didn't. And it's just like really, just like a really, really weird, like he's just like, okay, cool. Like I'm obsessed with pop culture. I'm going to make this Easter egg, which was misdefined in the movie. Again, I'm going to throw that out there. It's misdefined in the movie. An Easter egg doesn't have to do anything, people. An Easter egg is literally just a reference. It can do something. It can do something, but it doesn't have to do something. It doesn't have to break the game. It doesn't have to give you unlimited powers. It doesn't have to do anything. It could just literally be a picture on the wall or, you know, the letters SFX in the movie Lion King or...
Although the actual Easter egg that they had to find to get the Easter egg was an actual Easter egg. In Adventure,
yeah. Like,
where the guy just put his name in there.
Yeah, he put the very first Easter egg. Yeah, like,
so they kind of broke their own definition.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, guess what? It didn't do anything. I mean, it gave credit to someone, but it didn't break the game. And in fact, it literally forced you to not play the game. But like, but all of that to say that it kind of just like failed to do something that the book did very clearly, which was show that like Halliday wanted everyone to, if not enjoy, at least understand what he went through as a child, the things that he enjoyed, the things that he appreciated. He wanted to basically share his life with people for better or worse. Whereas in the movie, it's just a plot device that's immediately thrown out the window because it's never used. I refuse to believe that one thing, like them having to relive The Shining is a pop culture reference,
which is also not in the book at all.
I mean, that's fine. They could have changed it. Right. I wouldn't have cared if they had changed it.
Exactly.
But like, it's just like I refuse to believe that right there is enough to say that the entire Easter egg hunt was, you know, a whole pop culture trip. It wasn't. And like you said, you both said, the pop culture thing was just like a facade, a veneer, something just like, oh, I recognize that character from Overwatch. And I was just like, oh, there's a bunch of Spartans there. That's cool. Like, that's all it was. And it's just like, okay, yeah, all right.
When I feel like if you wanted to jump on that train, make all the main characters have avatars that are references to pop culture. Like,
yeah.
Like, why? Like, why are you going to throw them in on the side? Like, make it... And... I think it's like, I don't want to be irritated with the movie just because it's like, oh, it's just bad and it's dumb. But like looking at the things that they could have done and just really wondering like why they didn't. And I'm sure like budget and special effects and things like that. But one of the things to me is...
That was a very high budget movie though. And it was Spielberg.
Exactly.
So they could have done... Spielberg could have been like, I need an extra $100 million to make Parzival literally look like the person Parzival, like look like that. Instead, although to be fair, I actually really liked the fact that he had like the sword on his back, on his vest. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's
but like
it's a fun Easter egg.
Yeah,
like,
it's just like a little, but you know, other than that, it just looked like a really crappy body painted Garbo human.
Well, and to me, that's the thing is like, why... If you have to take out some of the hunting aspects of using pop culture to find all these bits of information, like why not just completely rewrite what the contest is about? And to me,
I think that's what they did, which is why it doesn't work.
But they did it poorly. And so my suggestion,
they made the story about the big guy versus the little guy,
exactly,
which isn't what the book was about.
And so in my mind, like why not make the contest about finding Easter eggs? And then for like pop culture fans who are probably going to be the ones in the audience watching this movie, make it about like, I mean, this is just like a random exterior, and I don't think they should use this example, but like how you had to get the 13th skull in Halo 3, where you had to jump between all those rings. Oh my
and God, yes, like, I would have been your daddy's skull.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting it so wrong. Oh my goodness, it took me so long to get that.
But there's things like that. It's like, why not pull? You're already completely dismantling what the book does, which to your point, Chris, is totally fine, and that wasn't my beef with it.
Yeah.
But it's like, but then do something different. Don't try to do the exact same thing
and do it well.
Exactly.
For the love of God. Yeah, do something different and do it well.
Yeah. And so, like, why not make the movie about finding actual Easter eggs that people might be like, oh, I actually know how to do that. That's hilarious. And so then the payoff as a viewer is, I actually know how to do that. Or like, I'm solving it with them. But instead it's like, go dance with these floating zombies. Like, play this old game and do this thing and figure out it's not actually an Easter egg. Or like, win this race by driving backwards. All the stuff that they chose to be the final challenges were so dumb.
Yeah. And that's one of the
humanity.
That was one of my biggest gripes, that like in the book, I think we touched on this earlier. In the book, there was Like when you read the clue, you tried to figure it out.
Yeah,
you were like,
exactly.
You sat there, you're like, okay, here's the clue. What could that mean? A building long neglected, or a dwelling long neglected. Okay. Like, okay. Nothing. Got nothing. Let's see how he figures it out.
Exactly.
And then you go, and you're like, all right, let's. And then like as he picks the piece, that's one of the things that like I guess it's really hard to do in a film medium. That like in the book, you can allow your reader to try to figure it out with you, because the reader can read at their own pace. They can be like, all right, let's read this. Let's try to figure it out. Let's pause. Let's take a minute. Let's digest. Try to figure this out. What could this be? All right, let's go with it. And like you can get kind of a build up a little bit easier in a book than you can in a film, but you can do it. And they just refuse to do it. They didn't give you any payoffs with the clues, which what we said is just, they didn't give you anything, and they should have. They should have done what you said. They should have just made a bunch of Easter eggs that like, getting the I would have been your daddy's skull, or I'm trying to think of like a bunch of other Easter eggs in other games because I just don't really play a lot of them.
Well, I just don't Easter egg.
Well, it doesn't even have to be that. It could they could have just done the same thing that they did in the book, where like it was an Easter egg that he had inserted himself, not based on like another Easter egg.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and like, but based on like a pop culture thing.
Yeah. They
didn't do that other than The Shining, which still didn't feel like a pop culture thing, because like it was based on something he said, but not on something that he.
Yeah, it was an Easter egg.
It wasn't like,
The
Shining was his favorite movie of all time. Like, because in the book, every time like they figured it out, he was like, "Oh, this is why he chose this movie to do the thing, because like he used to love watching it with his dad after school every day," or like something like that.
Yeah.
But in this, it was like they just chose The Shining.
Yeah, it was
and as soon as The Shining came on, I'm like, "Oh gosh."
This The Shining because the author hated the movie, so he's an author that hated his own creation. It's like, no, he didn't hate his own creation. He hated
somebody else's creation of his creation.
He hated exactly what you're doing, which is ruining the book.
Yeah.
Gosh dang it.
And I'm sure that's probably why they chose The Shining, because it was like a movie adaptation of a book.
That's so kind of like, ironic.
We're being cheeky.
That's kind of ironic.
No, you're just acknowledging you suck.
Yeah, exactly. That was like, was that supposed to be our Easter egg that this is a bad movie, or like what's the deal here?
Yeah, I feel like the part that annoyed me most was like they turned it into like it felt like they were trying to be like the Hunger Games in some ways, or like those kind of like post-apocalyptic like a group of or a band of teenagers against like a corporation or against the government trying to like bring the status quo back. Because like when he meets Artemis and it's like this weird little band of like rebels, I'm like, why?
Yeah,
that wasn't in the book at all. She was like, she had her own house and she was like rich and whatever. Like,
and if they wanted to do that and make them a band of rebels like randomly in the same city. Like, why was all like the fact that they were all in the same city also bothered me?
Yeah, they also lived all next to each other.
But like, if they wanted Artemis to be a part of a band of rebels, welcome to the rebellion. Why didn't she have an entourage? She didn't. That entire movie, she is by herself or with the high five, which by the way is not explained at all in the movie.
They just threw it
and
out
they
there
never
a
show
times.
the scoreboard with all 5 of them in the top 5 positions, I don't think.
Yeah.
So you have no idea what the high five even means, which is really stupid. It was just something they tried to throw into the book to please the book fans without defining it, and they just expected you to know, which you can do, but only if you're already being faithful, which they weren't. So don't even do that. But anyway, I digress to the fact that Artemis doesn't have a rebellion entourage with her the entire time. Otherwise she probably wouldn't have gone to H to have her bike repaired. She would have just had them repair it for her.
Although when they did show their place, they had like only 3 things or something like that, and they were obviously poor. So
yeah, but even then,
and her dude is the whole reason they got caught.
Yeah, so her grocery shopping dude. Like that's like they think
just out buying carrots. Nothing to see here.
Like, I'm just some really nice guy who like I have a face tattoo, but don't judge me because of that, because I'm a really nice, easygoing guy who just chills and just buys groceries and brings home the bacon.
It was just like, oh my gosh,
but like
all over the place.
Yeah, but. Again, like, why? She doesn't clan, and yet she's with a clan. So, like, there, just kind of like
specifically, that's a good point.
Yeah. It was so. It didn't make any sense why she had a hideout, because there were people there. Like, what are they? Just, I just don't. I don't get it. Yeah. I don't understand. I don't.
Well, I think the whole rebellion thing was just trite, because like that was in the book. Like, it was like. The stakes were this corporation, if they take control, they'll do things with the Oasis that isn't good for the common man. But like that wasn't the story. The story wasn't this like battle between between like this powerful corporation and like individuals in it. Like it was, but it wasn't like this weird like, I don't know how to describe it. Like it wasn't this rebellious tale. Like none of them were poor. None of them were like in a part of a rebellion. None of them even believed they wanted to be a part of a rebellion. Like they were all very like
the only poor person was Parzival.
Yeah.
And H. H was also poor.
Yeah.
And also, just throwing this out here because I can't find a good place to say it, I hated what they did with H's voice in the movie. I couldn't understand him half the time.
Yeah.
Him, her.
Yeah.
It.
Well, I feel like even in the book, H grew up poor, but wasn't poor. Like H was rich after, like from getting all that stuff, and he had like his own private server and all that stuff.
Yeah, like H. So. Yeah, that's right. H was actually like,
and he did drive around in an RV, but like he had plenty of money. Like
and technically she. And
it was it was, which I mean they did that in the movie, and that's fine.
They completely botched that reveal.
Well, and the whole depth behind why in the book it's kind of like, it's not just like, hey, I'm actually like a black girl who's gay and this, and it was like, and the reason I'm that is because the Oasis was the only place I could do that and not be like stereotyped,
be who I was as a person,
right? And then also be like treated equally. I was like, dang, that's an
I remember reading that, and I was like,
but then in the movie,
I like this, but in the movie, it's like Artemis opens up the door and she's like, hey, probably not what you thought, right? And she's
I wasn't expecting an early 30s like male fan. Like, it was like, I understand that they did that to show that like to these characters it doesn't matter, but
in
also
the book there's like a weight to it where you're like, dang.
And also it wasn't Artemis that met her,
right?
It was Parzival, like literally her best friend.
House.
Yeah. And like another thing that I guess they just kind of like didn't like, maybe I'll actually hop on board this bandwagon with people just because I want to find more reasons to not like the movie. But like in the book, H was supposed to be overweight, and Artemis was also supposed to be like a little chubbier because she was 5'7", 160 pounds, and like they describe her body as Rubenesque, which I had to look up. But like it's not someone who is, overweight by any mean, but it's someone who's like thicker, and I'm not using that like THICC, like whatever, like, and they didn't do that. They didn't do that at all. They didn't make like they kept the birthmark, which thank God they did. Otherwise, I would have actually just like flipped tables and stuff. But like they didn't give these characters any real reason. Like any more reason to like actually have them not want to reveal who they were. Yeah. Like Artemis, like, yeah, she was ashamed of her birthmark, but also the fact that, she might not be what her avatar actually represented, or, or held to these standards. And yet they just kind of like threw those all away. And that was another thing that the book actually was supposed to do, and did pretty well, was like just try to be a little bit more diverse with its characters and like the interactions and how much like people don't care about certain things. And so they just didn't do that. They didn't do that in the book or in the movie at all.
Yeah.
And it's just
they
really,
didn't really do anything with the characters in the movie.
They didn't.
All of them were extremely like flat set pieces, other than Parzival himself.
Well, to me,
even then he just kind of was kind of like, I remember seeing him and I wanted to punch his face immediately. Him in the glasses is like, oh,
you're like,
what?
Gross.
This is my main character.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Also,
why
at one point he was playing on like a treadmill in the van, but then at another point he wasn't on the treadmill.
Yeah, I don't really know what's.
And in the book, he had like a bike that he used to charge it, but he didn't like play in the Oasis with it. Mm-hmm. But he was talking about like an omnidirectional pad. I'm like, how'd you install that in the back of a junkyard van? Like,
I don't know, dude. Well, and that's the other thing that they completely
and where'd you get the money for it?
Right. Well, and that's the other thing that they don't even address too, is that, and again, it's like they say this in the book, and it's like they did things that they did in the book, but they don't explain.
You read the book,
and
but
so
then they did it poorly in the movie as well.
Right.
It's so like we knew the backstory, but it didn't play out the same way. So like at every point we're just like, that's not what happened. That's not what happened.
I feel like they made this movie for like 4 different audiences, and that's why it sucked. Like they didn't make it specifically for the book folks, and so they kept it to a T, which is like, of course, which is fine. And I think we're all agreeing that that's totally okay if you don't think that.
A book adaptation of a movie doesn't need to be the book. To be good,
and it shouldn't be the book,
exactly.
Because one of my friends said this about comic book movies, and I think it just like it lends itself well to this too. Is that when you watch something like a comic book movie or a movie that is based off of a book or something, look at it as a readaptation, because it's a different medium, or it's a different writer, it's different things, like it's a different perspective maybe, and so stop comparing it to like its source material so much and expecting it to be that because it's not going to be. Look at it for what it is. And like, I know that that's not what we're doing here because
maybe someday,
but like maybe someday. But we're also like looking into all of the things that like we're comparing it and looking why it's like what they could have, what they should have, could have, all of these things. So I hopefully our audience is smart enough to understand what I'm trying to say.
No,
like,
yeah, totally. And
like,
I agree.
Because like the people who hate the movie because it's not the book are wrong.
Yeah,
like I will say that they're wrong. You're just wrong. Don't hate the movie because it isn't the book, because it can't be the book. It will never be the book. We're never going to sit in a time where we're going to watch a movie that's like 13, 14 hours long, maybe one day, but like we're not there. And frankly, I don't want to be there. If I'm watching a movie, I want it to have, I want it to be concise. I want to have payoffs and stuff like that, that like garner themselves well to the fact that I am watching it as opposed to reading it. And I'm not like, I am not both limited, I am restricted. Like when you're reading a book, you're restricted and unlimited by your imagination. Whereas in a movie, it's all there. So it can be purposefully restrictive or limited and, or like, expositional or however you want it to be. And so they just don't do, so understand that a movie is going to be different and it's supposed to be, and be okay with that. But good Lord, this was not a good movie.
Yeah.
Because there are just so many things wrong. And that, like, even if you're based off of a book, you can still, like, I don't know. It's just.
I think that would be my big takeaway point. We're kind of running up to that hour and a half, so maybe we can cut it. I'll just I'll take that as your last comments. I'll drop mine, and then Phil, if you want to fill in.
Oh, I have one more tiny last comment.
Sure.
Tiny last comment, which is if you're going to watch a movie that's based off of a book and you haven't read it or, something like that, watch the movie first. Watch it first. Do what Phil's going to say. Watch the movie first, because then you're going to not run into the trap, which everybody does, myself included. I am wrong sometimes.
Only sometimes.
It'll only be read. It'll only be recorded once, and that will be there. Is that because if you watch the movie first, you're not going to be hampered by the book. You're going to enjoy it for what it's supposed to be. And if you don't like the movie because the movie's bad or anything like that, still try the book. Because you already know that it's not going to be super faithful to it, or it's going to be different. So try that. It's kind of like, someone I knew in high school who, like, she liked the Aragon movie, but she had never read the book. So I made her read the book, and she's like, wow, that was a garbage movie. But, like, we're not going there. But I just decided to come up with another thing. It's like, but she liked the movie when she first watched it. And if you like the movie and you like the book, even if they're different, that's okay. But just, yeah.
Definitely.
That's all I got.
No, I would 100% agree. And I think, to me, this whole discussion was not to just trash on the movie just for the sake of the fact that we didn't like it and to do that, but just to say that it's just interesting that they made the choices that they made, especially with the source material that they had. And I think I just felt confused the whole time. Like, if you're going to change all these things, just change it all. Like, don't keep the things that you did that make me feel like I'm half in the book, half in the movie. Like, either make me wholly buy into the fact that this is a completely redone story in this world. You're changing things, you're altering things. Because to me, I was going in with the enjoyment of like, I wonder how they're going to change stuff. And I'm excited to see what they did. And
as
the way
soon
they
as
did
the
it,
race scene came on, I was like, this is going to be bad.
This is bad. Like, that's exactly how I felt though. And I think that's coming away. What I realized was like, I really wasn't going in and I really wasn't disappointed because it wasn't exactly like the book, which is kind of what we're saying, but it was because it wasn't a good adaptation of anything and it just wasn't a good movie. Like, it just flat out, it was like the characters are boring. You're basically telling me I should have read the book to kind of know some of the subtext that's going on, but then you're completely removing other things. And so, to be honest, I think my big statement would be they should have made a Netflix series that was like 20 episodes long, not a 2-hour long movie. And I think mainly because in doing a longer form with this specific book, which is a book about like stakes and a contest and like winning things and a lot of payoffs of like revelations and new information and things like that, in a 2-hour long movie, that stuff all just feels really off and like really stupid. And I think if you were to do that in a film or in a show, you can have those moments when like the episode ends and he's like, all right, well, here I go. oh snap, Artemis just got the next key, and then it's like boom, hard cut, and you're like, oh, next episode, baby, let's go. Whereas with this, you're like, wait, what? Like they're already all right, okay, we're at the end of the movie, and here and like that's it. And so
yeah, I think seeing
more
like,
payoffs,
just seeing like all the shows and stuff coming out that are doing really well at adapting their material, it makes me realize like TV is where it's at now.
Also,
it is.
Movies are kind of like, in my mind, like I don't see a ton of movies anymore because like it's just too short of a time to really get like a lot of the nuance in a lot of the different things I enjoy. Except like superhero movies work because they're doing it on a long scale form, I think.
Well,
but
if they're doing it correctly.
True.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is, the movies recently that I've watched and really enjoyed is I think it just feels like there's a whole bunch of amateur writers who have got, and I'm saying that as an amateur writer, is there's a whole bunch of stuff that they're doing that I'm like, I did that like my first creative writing class, like where there's like 50 things going on and there's no substance, or like they're not condensing it or realizing, okay, this is the actual story we're trying to tell. Let's tell that story better. They're just trying to do everything. And there's all this stuff that it's like, so in a 2-hour long movie, it does feel like you're not getting enough subtext because they're not taking the one singularly interesting thing and then diving head deep into that. They're trying to play it all.
A lot of breadth rather than
exactly.
depth. Yeah.
And I think that's why we're having some of these movies that are coming out that are like standalone amazing films, is the few that are, you know, like when you have Get Out or you have Hereditary or you have, I'm trying to think of like another, you know, even like a John Wick. John Wick knows it's just a gun-toting action movie, but it tells an interesting story in the midst of it, so it's a little more fun to watch. And it's like, I'm not trying to be enlightened watching John Wick. I just want to see a guy do dope military, you know, like Gun McGraw stuff, you know, or like with, you know, whatever example you want to plug in. This was not the right medium. I mean, that's another one, you know, but it's like, it knew what it was and it just embraced it. And I feel like this movie, as a book adaptation, tried too hard to reference to the material while changing too much to reach a new audience. And I feel like they should have picked who they were trying to cater to. Were you catering to gamers alone? Were you catering to fans of the book? Were you catering to, like, you know, someone who's never read the book and just likes action sci-fi movies? Like, who are you writing to? And I feel like they did all three. And as a result of it, the majority of our gripes, it sounds like, are you just did everything. And it all competed with itself in terms of like what I'm supposed to understand. And like, you know, I never once was mad at the movie or didn't think it was a good movie because it didn't do something the book did. It was that they tried to get it too close and then changed it in a weird way where it's like,
it was arbitrary.
You just broke a rule that was very major in the book, but you didn't explain why that rule is different.
Congratulations, Parzival. Here you go. Ding.
Yeah, it's like, what? So anyway.
I don't need this quarter. Dude, who doesn't keep a quarter?
Hashtag Ready Player One, hashtag broken rules.
like why would you not keep the quarter though?
I don't know.
Like, I don't know. Like if someone gives you a quarter, are you just gonna be like, no, take this?
No, you keep it. Like, no, you keep it.
No, you keep it. And then Artemis grabs it. She should have kept it. Honestly, like that would have been
what
interesting. What if they had done that? Like, dude, what if Artemis had kept the key?
What if Artemis was the one who had won? Yeah. That would have been interesting. To me, I would have been like, okay, I like
all
this.
right, I see where we're going with this.
And see that there's so many things they could have done that just would have been so much more fun. What if Wade is like flicking the quarter and then like H steals it and she's like, what's this? And he's like, I don't know, it's some stupid quarter thing.
Yeah, just like keep it. Yeah,
she's like, sure. And then H is the one who gets in the end. Or like, what if they did, you know, or like it keeps changing between like 15 different people because they're all like, I don't know, it's a stupid quarter.
Yeah, it's like just like play it back and forth, or like they're playing some like random like game of poker or something and they bet the quarter and they're just like laughing and they just get
exactly.
It.
And then like it just changes hands and then maybe it does end up with Parzival.
All right, so what we're saying is we have to rewrite the movie.
Maybe.
We can write the sequel.
We'll write the
Ready Player 2.
I'm pretty sure they're working on a sequel.
Oh dear gosh.
Because for context, it made $600 million in the box office.
What was it, like 72% fresh?
77% fresh.
What?
So that's I feel like that's sequel material. So we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Shame on you.
I think he's also planning on writing a book too.
Is out there.
No, like the book was good for a sequel. I was like, honestly, the book left itself so open ended for a sequel. Like it ended.
It would be
and
so different though, because you'd have to get rid of the pop culture stuff. It wouldn't.
It could have been something else, or someone just you have literally anything at your at your disposal because it is the Oasis,
right?
So like,
well, and even now you have these kids who are stupid rich that this would be an awesome sequel, is if they get all this money and what they do is they like make the world better, and then the world turns into a utopia, but then someone comes up and ruins it again. And so then you like you're in like, instead of being at the beginning of this book where you're at the post downfall, you watch the downfall. Yeah. That would be tight.
That would be cool.
There's a lot of things you can do. Yeah. And I am actually really excited to see if he does.
I think he is writing a sequel.
I would absolutely, I would 100% read it.
Because he already wrote an Ender's Game ripoff. Like, it's called Armada. I
think they had a little aside at the end of the book that I saw.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Like, it ended worse than Ready Player One did, actually. Like, after rereading Ready Player One, I was more okay with the ending. After reading it the first time, I was like, what? Is it? Is where you end it? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, why you gotta end it like that? But at the end, like the second time, I was like, okay, I can. This was a good place to end it. But because it was like the end of a TV episode. Like, definitely. Oh, it's done.
Yeah.
But instead,
things are done.
The movie. Tuesdays and Thursdays are for love.
Oh, for love, baby. That's all I can think of. Anyway, so to give you your last... Sorry, we've been ping-ponging.
Yeah, I would say it's weird because of how well it did, I feel like it served its purpose in a sense. Mm-hmm. It just didn't... It didn't work for the audience that it should have been written towards, I think.
Sure.
Like, I don't know. I feel like if you're going to do a movie based on a book, then you should be more faithful to the book in essence. But then that's what made me realize maybe I don't actually like the book because the essence of the book is the pop culture stuff, and that was my least favorite part about it, was all of the 80s references.
What about the pop culture stuff did you not like? Like, just that it was...
Just the quantity. I think there was just too much. And it was like him listing off, like, I watched this show for 72 hours straight last week or I watched this movie 50 times already and I know all this stuff. And you could tell that the author himself was just like, I don't know, like, it's hard to describe, but
sure,
it just came off as like weird to me, and it
was very heavy-handed with its references.
And maybe if it was references that I got more often, I would maybe have enjoyed it more.
Yeah,
but I think our culture right now is really obsessed with nostalgia, and it's starting to like get annoying to me. Like I like nostalgia to a certain extent, but I don't want like all of my things to be fueled by nostalgia and like, oh, I'm only obsessed with things from the 80s because that was the best time that life ever was, and like nothing good has been made in 2019.
That was something that was interesting they mentioned in the book, was like people were like, why does Halliday love the 80s so much? Because he hated his teenage years. Like, why is he so obsessed with it? Because he hated it. Like, he hated his life, and yet he like built all of this around a time period that he hated, which
when I think the point was that he used all this pop culture as an escape, and so now he's bringing people along, and which is character development, and you don't need to hear him talk. But anyway,
so my final point is kind of like Chris said, but not exactly. I think if I would have watched the movie before I read the book, I think I would have enjoyed it more for what it was. But because I read the book beforehand, I absolutely hated it. Yeah, like, I walked away from the movie thinking like, that was absolute garbage.
I agree. Yeah.
Like it, and it's not because it wasn't faithful to the book, but like the message that they were sending in the movie felt so counter to what I had just read, and because I watched it within like 2 days of finishing it.
After I finished it.
So like I was like real fresh. I was like geared up, ready to go. I was like, all right, this is gonna be dope. And then I was just like let down at every moment. Like there was the first part where it shows like the stacks and like he's kind of telling his backstory. I'm like, oh wow, they're
like, I'm
from
really Columbus.
Faithful.
Like, okay, he was in Oklahoma in the first one, but that's fine. Yeah. Like, get him right to Columbus. That's fine. That's fine. Like, okay, cool.
But like to a certain extent, I was like, okay, they're like pretty faithful so far. They're like setting the scene and stuff. And then as soon as the race turned on, I was like, this is going a direction I did not want it to go. Yeah. And it became just like this random, like it basically just became like a random action film about like a group of teenagers who like surmounts the odds. Yeah. And like, I didn't feel like that's what the book was about. Yeah. And it kind of left me with like an uneasy feeling, like almost like he ruined the book for me. Like I keep saying, like, I feel like I wouldn't go back and reread it now.
Yeah. But, and I don't know if
I would probably give it some time, but
I don't know if I'd ever reread the book either. And that's
to be honest, like
it's actually worth it.
I enjoyed the book. I don't think his writing was that good.
But it was very simplistic, and
he had a very
that is not a knock. I think there's a very, because like I've read other books that, you know, like Neuromancer, for example, from William Gibson. I don't know what the heck is going on. It's really hard to understand sometimes. This was just very straightforward and simplistic, and I think in a way that's how he got away with a lot of the pop culture stuff underlying it. Is I think, and to your point too,
I don't think the pop culture stuff ruined the book for me. but I think I could have done without it, and with the same exact setting, and I think it would have been just as fine in my opinion if you rewrote the story around some other stakes, premise, whatever.
Definitely.
But
man, that was a ride. That was that was probably one of our most ranty episodes.
Yeah. And I wasn't even behind it all.
I know, right?
Yeah,
oh, dude,
so good.
And it's tough because it's not to hate on it for hating on its sake. It's more like, what is with everyone redoing things really bad or like just doing this stuff that just doesn't make sense?
Seems kind of weird.
Yeah, I just
could definitely tell it was a Steven Spielberg movie. Like, like the giant fight scene at the end was pretty dope. We didn't say anything we liked about the movie. I realized.
I will say this: the special effects in this movie were unreal. Yeah, like it was spectacular, and a lot of it was just straight CGI. So of course, like
the fight scene was pretty dope.
I liked the guy's predator sniper, or his alien sniper, just like comes out and got the little head that comes out and shoots. That was cool.
I would have liked more space stuff. Because the book was a lot more like space travel and like dope spaceships and stuff, but there was nothing of that.
I wanted to see a Pillar of Autumn, and there wasn't one.
That would have been dope.
Maybe there was one. I'll just have to. I'll have to rewatch it. Never mind.
Never mind.
I'll look up pictures. I'll be like, what are the ships that are referenced? Please, someone show me screen caps.
Yeah,
I'd be curious to see who owns the rights to all of these properties. Like, was this studio just advertising all of its stuff to us, or like did they actually get
rights? That's a really good question. Well, to me though, and again, and I don't want to jump back in a big circle, but I think they should have picked an audience basically, because if they're trying to get modern gamers to come, I would have been so much more enthralled with this movie if all the main characters' avatars were like after like Master Chief or other characters from who's probably seeing this movie, or
even if they were like obscure ones,
exactly.
Or like, what if one of them was like Ghost from Modern Warfare, just something, and never reference it, just always have it there in the background. I love those things where it's just like something that's just always in your face, but they're just never be like, oh, nice costume, you look like Ghost from something. Just
nice Ghost from Call of Duty.
Yeah, it's like just completely ruin it. Just like, and there's exposition just being ruined. Like that was. I mean, I guess that's one of the things the movie did well, was that it put things in there for players who knew it and recognized it to enjoy.
Yeah.
Like the Overwatch people, like the Spartans.
I got stoked when I saw Iron Giant. I was like,
like the Iron Giant. Like those things, those things were in there, like the Gundam thing, like, which, believe it or not, was actually faithful to the book.
Right.
But like all of those things were in there, like that was cool, like things that they just put in there for people who knew what it was to like it.
Definitely.
They did a good job with that, and that was something you can do with film as a medium, because you just get a whole screen to fill up your space.
And I feel like they should have just ramped it up. Like the funny thing is, as I was thinking about it, probably one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is when Artemis is disguised as Goro from Mortal Kombat, and she like grabs him and like pulls him into a side room, and because I thought it was just like a crazed fan, but then like when she's in the side room,
and then she just pulls it off.
Well, and then like how it happens is like the alien from Alien comes out of his chest, and then it like eats itself up, and then she's like, "Ha, gotcha."
That was
and
really
to me,
cool.
That was exactly what the movie should have been the entire time. Is like a whole litany of just decades worth of references all crammed into one thing that have nothing to do with the contest, because you just threw it out the window anyway. So make the pop culture references, instead of dealing with the contest, do it about the characters. Like have it things like that, where it's like, the funny thing is, it's not just that, oh, the alien ate through Goro. It's like, that's exactly what Mortal Kombat does. Like that's exactly the kind of gore, like awful type thing, is like people getting ripped in half and like getting their heads like rammed in places and stuff. And so it's like, so to have the alien eat out Goro from like the inside and like do that, and for her to be like, ha, trolling you, it's like, that was a good moment. Like, why are there not more of these?
My last final rant is, why was Artemis also not as popular as Parzival?
I don't know,
because like they're supposed to be from the High Five, so why is Parzival the only one that needed to be disguised when they went into the thing? Artemis was Artemis
in what thing?
And she's a streamer. Like when they go into Halliday's records, and they like, he puts on the Clark Kent glasses that supposedly changed his avatar.
Well, I think
but
at that point he was so popular because he had found the key.
Yeah, but Artemis was there with him.
She didn't have the key yet, though.
I thought she did.
She
at that point.
She
not at that point.
She did. She did, because they were like, Artemis was next to get the key because she found me, and then H and all that stuff, and then they go to the records.
Really?
Yeah. I might be forgetting or remembering things. I think to your point, it was just
like they were
everything
just
was disjointed.
They were so lazy. That's the biggest thing that I think I can say about the movies.
Yeah,
lazy, just lazy, perezoso. Lazy.
So in conclusion, we should write the sequel to this movie.
Correct. And when we do, we will let you know when our episode comes out on the following platforms, which is iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and Spotify. I finally put in I don't know how many hours, and all the YouTube episodes are up to date.
I threw an update on our Facebook.
So. Yes. So if you are a hardcore YouTube listener, doesn't look like any of you are, but in case you need it, they're up there. You can also follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pop Culture Punks. I will be dipping off of Twitter and Instagram for a good while just to take a mental break, but Phil is still on there at I am Phil Sorensen. He's also running all the Pop Culture Punk stuff. Send us any emails and other messages or whatever to our Instagram or Twitter at Pop Culture Punks.
Give us your hate mail.
Dude, I'm waiting for it. Or if you want to send a hate mail email, you can send that to popculturepunks@gmail.com. We've got merch on Redbubble and Threadless. And until next time, which will be anime to live action adaptations, and we will be discussing Death Note and Ghost in the Shell.
I cannot wait to hear you.
We might have two back-to-back railers, so we'll see.
I can't wait. I just cannot wait.
That's why we did Ghost in the Shell. We were going to originally do Full Metal Alchemist and Death Note, but I figured we should do one that was at least somewhat
decent,
well received, Ghost in the Shell. So.
Yep. So that'll be interesting. And then after that, April will be the month of heroes. So it's going to be a lot of superhero
Can't wait
talk.
for Rendell.
Dude, Rendell the Dark Avenger, baby. It's going to be tight. Until then.
And Shazam.
We will catch you next time in the Oasis, and we bid you a fond cowabunga.
Job security, but I've been dreaming about packing it all up, cause the war in me just won't relent till there's nothing left but dust. So what do you do when the walls start closing in, and everyone you love tells you it's all just in your head?